We have breaking news into the CBS 2 newsroom. I'm Mary Calvi, and the Supreme Court just came down with its biggest Second Amendment ruling in more than a decade. The High Court overturning New York's concealed carry law that requires gun holders to show a special need to be armed in public. We have team coverage for you. First, we begin with CBS 2's Jessica Moore breaking down the big decision.
We'll come back to them breaking down the big decision. Good afternoon, everyone. Some technical problems today with memory, with typography, and with being on time. I forgot Robert was live with the Duran at 1 o'clock. I think they're still live right now. Then I set it up and then I forgot, I had to pick up kids. Then I forgot that I had invited James Topp to come on and give us the rundown of yesterday's meetings in Ottawa. Look, all's well that ends well. And it's at least starting well. We'll see how it ends. Okay, while everyone trickles in, on the menu for today, I do not believe is it called the Dobbs decision? The overturning Roe v. Wade decision has come down from SCOTUS. But what has come down, according to mainstream news, is the biggest Second Amendment decision in over a decade. I am not watching the January 6th hearing. I actually went into a room and it was on the TV. I changed the channel on the TV, then turned the TV off just in case. We'll walk through. I mean, I didn't get through the 115 pages of majority and dissenting opinion. I've gotten a gist of the decision. Was listening to Barnes on the Duran while jogging on the treadmill, and I think I've gotten the perspective of people who I know are more informed than me on the subject. It's interesting stuff. But before anything else, I'm a Canadian. We're going to talk some important Canadian stuff. Yesterday, James Topp, the man who is marching across Canada, CanadaMarches.ca, he started at the Terry Fox Memorial in Vancouver. I want to say it was after February, March. I think it was April, and has been marching across the country ever since. He's a military veteran, suffered some employment consequences for refusing to submit to a certain medical procedure and or disclose his medical status. Has been marching across Canada. If it had been anyone else for any other cause, he would have had the Canadian legacy media hounding him for the story, celebrating him as a hero for constitutional rights. But alas, he's protesting the wrong constitutional violations. So the legacy media that is being spoon-fed cash by the handful, what a mixed metaphor there, no interest in it. I think I might have been one of the first people to actually interview James Topp. He put out it was an informal, I'm sure in hindsight, it'll be a cringy video, announcing what he was doing and reaching out to other social media people with platforms. I saw the video. He came on. We talked for a long time. He's been marching across the country since. As he's marching across the country, protesting these, I will say, unconstitutional vaccine mandates, travel restrictions, COVID restriction responses. He's been marching in protest to that, reaching out to members of parliament to meet, to sit down for what he calls the 3 R's plus 1. Repair, remedy, rectify, restitution, something along those lines. He'll explain it. He's been reaching out to parliamentarians to meet with him, to talk with him. And yesterday, a handful, I think it was maybe a dozen, agreed to. And I think at some WEF mandates, I think according to some, several of the MPs walked out mid-meeting. It was a meeting with Dr. Paul. I forget his last name. I'll get it. Tom Marazzo, who's been on the channel, James Topp, and a handful of MPs. I don't think there were any NDP or Liberals there. And now he's back on the road. They drove him in from where he was on his trek for the meeting. He had 2 meetings in one day, and they shipped him back out to where he ended up, and now he's continuing his march to Ottawa to arrive, I believe, on the 1st. And we're going to bring him in, talk to him about his day yesterday, get the update, and then we're going to get into some other stuff. SCOTUS. An online debate in absentia that I'm having with Jordan Peterson and Ethan Klein. More of a discussion with Jordan Peterson that he doesn't yet maybe even know is happening, and a lesson that we can all learn from Ethan Klein's loser think. And then I guess we're going to touch on the Gab situation and the Rumble terms of service, which I think we're going to hold off on the meaningful discussion until Sunday night with Barnes, but I'll address some, basic concerns and some funny stuff. I never understood what Gab was. And it's bizarre for a company, the CEO of a company, to behave in such a manner. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Right now, James Topp, I'm coming into you. Top of the afternoon to you, sir. James, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hold up. Your audio is blasting. Edit mic settings. I'm going to just take that off. Okay, I'm going to bring you way down. Okay, let's see it. Let's see how it works down. Mic check 1 2.
Check 1 2.
Okay, I think that's better. Chat, let me know if the audio is way out of sync. James, where are you?
Yeah. Hey, Viva. I'm outside of Petawawa, Ontario. Kind of my old stomping grounds, actually. I was posted here at CFB Petawawa from about the mid-90s up to the mid-2000s, about 10, 12 years. And I know a lot of fellas in the area. This interview might get interrupted. So, fellas and ladies, I should say. Just to, I was listening to your intro there. Thank you for that. Yeah, we did stop just outside of Deep River, Ontario yesterday. Drove in on the night of the 21st to Ottawa. We spent a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into arranging this meeting. I can tell you that much. And it happened. It happened.
Who showed up exactly? Are you allowed to mention the names?
Say again?
Are you allowed mentioning the names of which MPs showed up?
I don't have them in front of me, but they've been published in a couple of articles now. It's actually a point that I'll speak to in a second because let me tell you something, Viva. I went in, I saw politics in all its ugly glory. Okay, it was a sight to behold. I got into the gallery in between our sessions with MPs and watched question period, and how anything is accomplished in this country is beyond me. But what I will say is that the list is out there. It's actually something being used as to club conservative MPs over the head with now for the audacity that they had in meeting with me. But what I will say is this: I applaud their courage. I think that in general, we kind of have this impression of members of parliament as this kind of mass of ineffectual and they're ineffectual and not able to get anything done. And however, what I saw was, they are human beings individually. They're just like us. But they're a part of a larger organization that I think is, not that responsive or has a lot of efficiency. So where I'm going with this is that the ones that came out to say, there was 23 of them altogether that came out, primarily from the Conservative Party. And so I was asked early on why it was only Conservatives that came out, and my response was, I don't know. I think it's because of their aligning with anything that they see is, how do I put this? I don't know, and at odds with the current federal government. It's hard to explain. But the reality is I would have met with any member of parliament. Any member of parliament was welcome to come to that meeting, and it was only conservatives that showed up.
So
So
I pulled up an article. It's on the CBC. It says included in the meeting, Lillian Lewis, Warren Steinley, John Barlow, Ryan Williams, Dean Allison, and Arnold Viersen. I can only recognize one name there. Leslyn Lewis is the one I recognize. But it's a funny thing, James. Like I know who I've invited on the channel for discussions, and I know typically who says yes and who politely does not respond. Your reach out was not just to conservatives. Your reach, as far as I understand, was an open invitation to all parliamentarians, the people who were elected to represent the likes of you, even if they don't agree with you. You reached out to all of them. You only got response from a handful of conservatives.
that's correct. And a lot of the conservatives, it seemed to me there's some kind of factional conflict going on there. But it was encouraging, I have to say. Like, despite the party politics, like I said, this whole thing, okay. In one of my letters I wrote, I said we need to demonstrate to the Canadian people that this system still functions in some way. And I think, as you know, the problems that we have with the system, it shows that if you put your mind to it and you have enough help, you can at least get something going. So I'll just elaborate a little bit on the outcome, I'll just talk about the whole day really, and then I can elaborate on the outcome. So we got into Ottawa. The meeting venue was provided to us at the Valor Building, and it was an excellent location. We had all the bells and whistles when it came to AV and presentation capabilities. We were able to stream it and broadcast it, and I encourage anybody to go and look at the presentation in its entirety, because I did have myself, and the name you were looking for, Dr. Paul Alexander.
Yeah.
So he's an immunologist, epidemiologist of some renown, and he was able to speak to why the mandates must be repealed, and I'll go into what I was calling the 3R equation. Okay, so the 3 R's are repealing mandates in all their forms, more or less, reinstating workers, granting restitution, and that 3 R's is going to give you repair. So 3 R's equals repair. Because the repair that we need to do, and I don't know if we spoke about this before, but there's a divide that's been introduced in the society. We have a number of people who identify with this, quote unquote freedom movement. A number of people who, went along to get along, and they're not seeing the suffering that's been inflicted by the imposition of these mandates. And then we have the group of people who do what they're told all the time, anywhere, any place, anytime. So that's what the divide is all about. And we need to repair it, because as I see it, it's severe, and if we don't get on top of it, it's going to cause some kind of upheaval, and I'd rather not see that. It doesn't take much. So I had Dr. Paul Alexander there to speak to repealing mandates, because as you know, there's been some suspension of travel restrictions and other things. Some federal government workers are getting called back to work, so forth and so on. And I keep getting asked this question, well, they're lifting mandates, why are you still marching? So I'll answer that in case you were thinking about it. Number one, they're not lifting any mandates. They're being suspended just in case there's a presence of a new variant, or the resurgence of an old variant, or some other hypothetical situation where they will be reimposed on us. I don't doubt it. So that was why I had ensured that I was able to bring an expert to speak to me on why all of these things must be repealed. And the point of fact is that you can prove through analysis of the data that most of the pandemic measures that were put into place did little to nothing to prevent this thing we're calling COVID from circulating.
Well,
Number two,
and just to stop you there, for anybody who does not recall in real time, when Texas was announcing lifting the mask mandates, and they said, wait 2 weeks, you're going to see. Wait, it was always the wait 2 weeks. When Florida, which never enacted anything close to what we had in Canada, you overlap the charts, you're going to see by and large identical progressions, identical curves. So there have been now studies coming out showing that which was done had minimal impact, if any, as relates to combating or slowing down the spread of the virus. Where we're going to see effects that it's going to have are going to be in the coming years and decades, and that's going to be a totally different set of consequences. Sorry, James. So carry on. Number two.
Yeah. Number two was the efficacy of the vaccination protocol that was put into place is also of limited or zero benefit. Okay, so and in point of fact, may be actually damaging. So he has the data available to him, is capable of studying it and interpreting it and telling us exactly, why all of the imposition of these things was harmful at a greater level. So, which is why I introduced and had him come to the conversation, because it was important that he speak to the relevant points. So, repealing, reinstatement, restitution equals repair. And to the point, these members of parliament who showed the courage to come and speak to me, they were prodded into activity by all of the folks that I met along the way who have been following this journey, who I asked to write to your members of parliament and come and get them to come and talk to me. So this system does work. Like what I am doing, what my team is doing, what they have enabled me to do, people resonated with it. They reached out to their members of parliament in email and mail, calling, saying, go talk to James Topp. And I know this because the member of parliament that I met said, I have a number of constituents who said I should come and talk to you. So this is where we're at with this. This is one of the things I wanted to do and bring it forward to the Canadian people so that they could see it takes some effort, but if you can get those cogs in the machinery working, then you have the ability to make an effect. So that mission task, I think, was accomplished. What I had wanted to speak to them about was who I am, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. Here's what I see the problem. Here's some solutions. And the solution that I presented to them was the establishment of something we're calling the Canadian Citizens Coalition, which is bringing under one umbrella a number of loosely affiliated organizations. Let me back that up. A number of previously loosely affiliated situations that we can get working together to achieve a common goal. So we have Police on Guard, Vaccine Choice Canada, Veterans for Freedom, Mounties for Freedom, Taking Back Our Freedoms, frontline nurses, okay? And we want to get more partners. We want to get more communities involved. And this is the answer, because what I see the problem is, and feel free to reinterpret it as you will, but I've been doing this for 4 months. I've met thousands of people from Vancouver to Ontario. Most of them are unhappy with the federal government, and they see the federal government as inflexible, intractable, and unresponsive.
I'll throw in a few there. I see it as corrupt, immoral, and with absolute wanton disregard for the Constitution. So some might see ineptitude, others might see evil, for lack of a better word.
Well,
In which case, someone's going to
yeah.
say, "How do you negotiate with bad faith?" But sorry, James. Okay, carry on.
Well, there's a number of adjectives that we could throw in there. I don't doubt. However, what I'm just trying to say is that this is me talking to folks in the old-timey way, face to face, and in close contact. Okay, this is what I've heard. This is the common ailment facing us. Okay, so what I see is that there's too much power in too few hands in one location. And the answer to that is a citizens coalition. And this is what I think all of these, like I said, previously loosely affiliated groups can achieve and bring some kind of balance back. You know, give people, give voters, give the public, inform them of what they are capable of, what their rights are, and how they can kind of counterbalance all of the power on one side and bring it back to their side. So, you know, like for example, I've marched with my team here 4,000 kilometers. You can get 4,000 people to march 1 kilometer instead. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you're getting at.
So this isn't a union. It's not a lobby. It's not a party. It's not a political action committee. It's a chimera of those things. And we're going to try to make something work with it. Because I needed to bring to that meeting something to show members of parliament that there are things going on. There are citizens getting together. They are working towards something, and with something that they're working towards a solution to the problems we have. And that's what I presented to the members of parliament. And I went forward to extend a hand to them, and I believe it was taken up, and I believe that over the summer and fall, we can have further discussion on how to get out from underneath all of this government-imposed mandates and restrictions and requirements and this kind of thing. So what I will say is that like my faith in this system was somewhat restored, because I can see that there was human beings there. When you can put a name to a face and speak to them, a lot of them are earnest. They believe in what they're doing, but the parliamentary system, I think, is structured in such a way as to...
Oh, no. I hope we didn't lose James. Chat, let me know.
I was happy with the way it turned out, because, yeah, it took marching 4,000 kilometers and ceaseless overcoming ceaseless bureaucratic hurdles along the way, but I was able to establish this meeting and get it going.
Well, so, okay, look, I don't want to. I don't want to impart my cynicism on you, but I'm not sure what I think I would see in those politicians if I were to have met them. But let me ask you the one question that people in the chat are asking, but the answer seems to be no. Did Pierre Poilievre show up? And did he even respond?
Yes. Well, interestingly enough, after having not heard from him for a number of, right up until the night of the meeting, he had one of the people reach out, and we were able to have a conversation with this.
Okay, James, we're having some connectivity issues. Damn it. I'm gonna text.
Got some of his staff, after all this time, one of his staff finally contacted us Pierre wasn't going to attend the meeting because I do believe he was out of Ottawa at that time. But he did want to meet for a coffee, or as I understand it. Well, it wasn't. How do I put this? It didn't seem fair to other members of Parliament to, give them the photo opportunity since they had they had the courage to come and see us, and just be able to say, hey, yeah, Pierre, we're going to swing out of our way to come and have a coffee with you. But he didn't attend the meeting, unfortunately. His staff member reached out to us. We weren't able to accommodate him. Okay. Hang on here.
Yep.
All right, we're not going to be able to. Okay, you're just going to have to keep going. This is a bad spot. So I don't know, does that answer your question? At the last moment, one of his staff members reached out to us. And we tried, but it didn't work out.
It answers the question. I think some people might come to their own conclusions based on that from what you've described. No response the day of, can't make it, let's meet up for a cup of coffee somewhere else. And okay, draw your own conclusions, people. Who were the members of Parliament that walked out of the first meeting that you had yesterday? And do you know why?
I actually don't know who they are. All I can say is that it probably had something to do with, look, I don't know. Okay, did they have other committee meetings that they had to attend? Was there an emergency? They live by their phones as much as more than any one of us probably does, and they could have got called to respond to some kind of emergency or something. So I can't say. I don't know.
May I ask, did it appear that they left at a certain time? I was led to believe that they left when Dr. Paul Alexander was speaking.
It's okay.
Let her know she's live on the interwebs.
Yeah, you're on the internet, right? So you guys know that. Okay.
Well, they know it now. So Faye Knox.
Sorry, can you give me 1 sec?
Pierre is campaigning for leadership. He's all over Canada. He's campaigning for leadership, which is why he should have been there specifically, in my humble opinion.
So sorry.
No, Dorma, James. So? Do you know if they left at when Dr. Paul Alexander was talking? A doctor who can be a little abrasive and direct in his message. Did they leave at roughly that time that you know of?
I honestly can't remember. It was a hell of a day yesterday. It's not every day I get 20 MPs in a room and have a chance to address them. So I don't know what to say. They got up, they left, they have their reasons. Maybe one day they'll feel like talking about it. But
and so now, I didn't see the first meeting. I saw the second one. How many stuck around afterwards to meet you, ask you questions?
Give me directly? 5 minutes.
How freaking cool is this, people? How cool is this? And cool in this is inspirational, albeit I feel a little jaded and black-pilled. James had his day with the MPs, felt encouraged. I think I might feel discouraged based on what happened, but we'll see. But James, how many stuck around to talk with you afterwards, privately, publicly, ask you questions, shake your hand?
Yeah, quite a few actually. To put a number, probably about 10 or 15. I mean, ultimately, like I said, I have to look at this from a positive point of view. Because it was, why not? It took a lot of blood, sweat, tears to get there. A lot of people put some time and energy into it, and I want to tell them that it paid off. Could it have been more, could have more of them showed up and made an even better demonstration that our democracy still functions in some way? Yes, but to be perfectly honest, I was expecting possibly zero to show up. So it's a win for me, okay? They know who I am. I know who they are. My concern about all of this is that we had 2 sessions. In the morning session, we had a lot more attendance. In the second session, we had 3. And in the second session, we had our friends from CBC, CTV, and Global show up. And of course, what they decided to zero in on was my trying to impart on the members of parliament why we needed to have a repair, and we needed to have a repair because of what I saw in similar situations 25 years ago in a war-torn country. So you have a population that is intensely dissatisfied with its government. You have a population that is suffering from inflation, high gas prices, ballooning public and private debt. I said I've seen these things in war zones. Because I said it that way, and because my colleague also kind of compounded that, um, that was zeroed in on by our friends at the mainstream, and they didn't want to talk about anything else.
No. Give it a second, people. James, James, you might have to reboot. Hold on, I'm gonna text your connection cut out, comment. You might have to log off and come back in. Does it? No, nobody else hears. Okay, right? Like this is not. James, we can't hear you. I think they're going to disconnect and come back in, unless they are. Damn it, Elon! Was that? I'm losing my patience here. Don't know what that means. We can't hear you, James. Let me put this up here. We can't hear. I'll put this up right here. Okay, there we. Oh, by the way, if anyone's wondering, I came out of the shower. If I'm not on the good mic, I'm gonna go nuts here. Hold on one second. Audio, good. I hope I wasn't too negative with James. You know, he met with these parliamentarians. From what I was explained, it may be wrong, but a bunch got up and left. Apparently, when Dr. Paul Alexander was speaking, Dr. Paul Alexander can be a little abrasive in his message. Not wrong. And that is why one has to, if one is sincerely interested in honest discourse, sometimes you have to focus on the message and not the method of delivery or the tone of delivery. The second meeting looked good, but 12 parliamentarians, all conservatives, very little media interest, no liberals, no NDP. It goes to show you who they are. James' success is going to be not with parliamentarians, but with the people. And he's already achieved that. The amount of people honking now at James, exponentially more than when he first started and we first did the walkie-talkie live stream. Okay, he's back. Hold on. All right, James, let me see if we got this now. I did not kick him from the studio. Okay. No. Try again. Okay, they're going to try again. What's the shirt? Why, that would be who, what, I just spat. Who, what, when, why, where at vivafry.com, where you can get all the merch. So Pierre Poilievre doesn't respond until the day of. Yes, he's campaigning for leadership of the party. I mean, maybe he wants a photo op without everyone else, and he thinks he's going to get it because he's running for leadership of the party. Maybe he just wanted the photo op. That's bad. That's bad form, and that is not how you show courage and show leadership and show what Canada needs right now, which is unification and not, let's get. If what it was he wanted the best photo op. If he's busy, you make time in your damn schedule when you're running for leadership of the Conservative Party to meet with probably the most popular person among the people right now, that being James Topp. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, I hear some good audio.
Yes, sorry about that. It was some technical problems that I had here. Somebody interrupting the call, but I'm just going to pass you to James in 1 second. He's just meeting with a bunch of folks here. I'll just show you the scene a little bit, but
this is beautiful. Is he at an RV? Is he at a campground, or is this people just pulling over on the side of the highway?
It's people just pulling over. Basically, every 3 to 5 kilometers, our RV support vehicle is stopping, and he stops and has some water or some food. And James, he's back, and this is one of the spots. I'll just pass you now to him.
Fantastic. And we'll go for another. We'll go for a few more minutes, and then you'll get back. And the people need to see you, James, and they want to see you.
Sure. Yeah, do you guys want to get a picture? So I just one. Okay. Well, we're gonna keep more marching then. Okay. Or is your family gonna do that?
I got to tell you, it's a beautiful area. Ontario's beautiful. Ontario's surprisingly beautiful. It's amazing. Can you imagine? I mean, the parliamentarians should be ashamed of themselves. Trudeau, there's no pride left. There's no shame left. There's nothing. He's a man who thinks he's beyond speaking to the rabble that he represents. Jagmeet Singh has proven himself to be the foot washer of the tyrant.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised and disappointed with Poilievre. Leslyn Lewis,
go ahead.
I've liked her for a while. Fantastic. James, do you know, is Leslyn Lewis running for the head of the lead? She's not running for the leadership of the Conservatives, is she?
I believe he is. I'm honestly not following it. Okay. So I want to put something out there just for on that topic. Okay.
Yep.
We are not. This is not political for us. Okay. We, like you had mentioned earlier, we're putting this out for every. We put that letter out for every single inhabitant of the House of Commons, not just Conservative members. But what else is happening in the mainstream media is they're trying to paint it that it's the Conservatives meeting with freedom leaders and okay, let's look left.
Well, the technology is good when it works. We're going to see. I think first of all, we've gotten, I think, enough of if it doesn't come back today. Okay, they're running. Okay, good.
So, like, they're trying to paint the Conservatives as aligning themselves with, people like me. Okay, so it's like you mentioned earlier. If I was protesting any other thing, I would probably have a CBC bus behind me, 24/7. But because I'm protesting against a mandate that I think is intruding in our personal lives, not a word. So this is the way I was kind of expecting it. I saw the direction that things were being framed when I spoke to my first CBC reporter there a couple of weeks ago, a gentleman by the name of David Fraser. As well as I do, there's framing and bias, and that is in full effect right now. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, there's a lot of positive things to talk about with regards to this march and what we were trying to achieve. So, there's two things that happened at those meetings, right? We had established contact with members of the federal government. I was able, with a great deal of effort, to arrange a meeting with them to voice my grievances and propose solutions. And then finally, demonstrate that to the Canadian public by having it live streamed, having it recorded, and we're broadcasting it. So I encourage everybody to go and download and watch the entire proceeding. It's not long, it's about an hour. And you can compare it to what is being reported in the news. Because I want to thank you for this opportunity to also clarify what is also being reported as this quote-unquote summer of protests, okay? I'm not really sure how this began or how it started, but it appears to me that we have this agenda put in place to kind of whip up the citizens of Ottawa and get them into a state of fear again, because you're going to have people visiting there on Canada Day.
Yeah, they're going to outlaw Canada Day, James. That's the end goal here. But
it's astonishing to me. So this is, unfortunately, I don't doubt it. It seems to be going in that direction. But more importantly, what I'm trying to get across, and you know, you guys have been helping me with this too, with this messaging, is that I'm still going. I got the meeting. I said what I needed to say. I think we're going to make progress in establishing future communication. And I'm going to complete this march because I told people that's what I was going to do. And on the 30th of June, I'm marching into Ottawa. And what I'm not doing is occupying Ottawa. What there is going to happen, though, is there are a bunch of people who have been following this, who have supported me, and they want to see this to a successful conclusion. And they've been telling me they're going to be meeting me in Ottawa. So yes, we are going to be in Ottawa on June the 30th. And I need to reiterate this to anybody watching. I'm visiting, okay? I'm visiting. I'm going to walk up to the War Memorial, and I'm going to put my hand on the tomb of the unknown soldier. And like I said in previous interviews, I'll know in my heart of hearts and be able to kind of have a little prayer to myself that you know, there was Canadians out there who had the courage, you know, to stand up, do something, stand together, and in a peaceful way demonstrate their opposition to what they saw as an authoritarian move by their own government. And you know, that's what we did. This is in the spirit of veterans who sacrificed in not just World War I and II, but also a number of conflicts, including Afghanistan. And they're standing up for the democratic ideals that this country was founded on. We're free to go where we want, say what we want, free to vote for whom we choose, and we'll abide by the laws of the land, you know, that are founded on true justice. And I'm paraphrasing Diefenbaker, of course, but this is what it's about, okay?
I had one more question.
Go ahead.
So, Poilievre, you didn't meet him. Leslyn Lewis, did she meet with you after the presentation?
Sorry?
Did Leslyn Lewis meet with you after you spoke?
Say again?
Oh, Leslyn Lewis, did she speak with you after? Now we're hitting digitization again. Okay, they're on mute.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Okay. Excellent. No, it's gonna be a telling thing. And when you arrive on June 30, do you have any plans, or have you reached out to other politicians, other MPs to meet with you upon your arrival?
My focus now is so that will be something I hope happens after July the 1st. Okay, so I don't want to engage in any kind of hyperbole. The amount of effort that went into getting that meeting on the 22nd of June weighed on every single member of my team, all 12 of us. Okay, and at this point, we are a small concern of limited budget and training, and we're going to focus on the next goal, which is June the 30th, and all the events that are going to happen on June the 30th. And when I say that, I'm getting a lot of messages saying that there's folks who want us to join us on the march, and I'm trying to arrange it so that I have some veterans helping me manage those people. Okay, so in doing so, I have to reach out to a couple of different agencies, including the Parliamentary Police Service, the Ottawa Police Service, and possibly the OPP. So that's the focus of the next 7 days. If we have something going on Canada Day, it's something that we're being invited to, because at that point the team's pretty tired and we want to go just attend something as guests. I am hoping, and we have made contacts, that we can arrange more meetings in the summer and the fall.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That's good. Yep. All right, James, two things everybody in the chat wants you to know: that millions of people are marching with you. If you were carrying another flag behind you, the media would be all over this, but they're not. The fact that Justin Trudeau did not dignify the Ottawa protests with so much as a discussion, and it's been radio silence on what you're doing, it's a sign of who we have in politics in Canada. Cowards, to put it mildly. And I'm lumping Jagmeet Singh in there as well.
Well, can I just jump in there for a sec?
Oh, please.
Because like I'm not going to criticize and call people out.
Don't worry.
I think there's an institution at work here that is even more at fault, and that is our friends in CBC, CTV, and Global. Because, like I said before, instead of reporting on this in a positive light, they choose to frame it as this, something that is negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like the attention that we have gotten, is always reported as such and such marching across Canada. Summer protests.
Mm-hmm. No,
so that is just as much of a problem.
I'm going to pull up one article after this just to highlight it, and then pull up some other stuff to highlight Justin Trudeau's inhumanity in these COVID restrictions. James, where can people find you? Where can people help you, support you if they want to, and how can they do it?
Well, we are about 200 kilometers west of Ottawa on the Highway 17, and we're on our way. It's going on. We got the rest day coming up on, I think, the 27th or the 28th. You can find us using the GPS link on our website, canadamarches.ca. Presently, our merch shop is on, because it's just like one of kind of pillars that I see as part of this Canadian Citizens Coalition is small and medium business. So we have a small t-shirts when it comes to printing t-shirts right now. So instead of letting people put orders on and having to wait for weeks and weeks, we're just going to shut it down until we get caught up, and then we'll restart the t-shirt selling business. But for the time being, if you want to go into the merch shop and just donate, you can do that. We have handed all of the latest bells and whistles when it comes to donating online. And sorry if I can't be more specific. I spent all day doing this.
Don't worry about it, James.
So,
I'll pin the link afterwards.
There's that. And then okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure, James. We're going to talk soon. I don't know if I'm going to be in Ottawa on the 1st or the 30th. And just so there's no rumors, it's not for fear of getting arrested or having my bank account frozen. I might be out of the country at that time. So I would
yeah,
love to be
a lot
there.
of people are doing that.
Well, no, it's summer and there's, but yeah. It is absolutely not for fear of having my bank account frozen. And that was not the reason for why I didn't go down yesterday. I couldn't get in the room, and I wasn't going to drive 4.5 hours to see you for 5 minutes, but I might do that at some point between now and the 30th if I can. Let me see.
Please
James, the presentation was fantastic. Today, I think they meant yesterday, but that you can find the entirety of the second meeting on Viva Clips on James Topp's YouTube channel. I'll put all the links in the pinned comment again. CanadaMarches.ca to support. And that's it. James? James, be safe. Keep on keeping on. I think if I'm going to be, I am inspired by what you're doing, but not because I think it's going to make the slightest impact on these politicians. The groundswell movement will come from the people. And they're going to see that it's going to be popular to actually represent the people and not snub them like Trudeau did, to go gallivant to California, to overseas and wherever. So keep it up. It's people are watching and people are getting inspired. And thank you very much.
Will do.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you, Viva.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Yeah. Just don't get hit by cars, man. I don't know. I don't know if he's on the 417. I want to show you something. Let me just, I'm going to kick from studio, kick guest. They'll be removed from the studio. Okay. Kick them. I want to bring up an article from the CBC. Let me just see. I think it might have been this one from the CBC. Are we looking at this? This is how and we're going to get to the Supreme Court decision today in a few minutes. Let me just see what we're looking at here. Okay, we got it. This is the CBC. I hope this is the right article that I noticed the spin on. June 22nd is yesterday. Last updated, June 22nd. CPC MPs meet with Freedom Convoy organizers. That's already a lie in the headline. They are presumably referring to Tom Marazzo, who was one of the individuals at the meeting. Tom Marazzo was a volunteer for the convoy, was by no means an organizer, but was participating in it. James Topp wasn't. And I think Dr. Paul Alexander wasn't. So, but just connected to the convoy, connected to the occupation. A group of Conservative Party of Canada MPs met with some of the people planning protests in Ottawa this summer. Oh, this is the first article from CBC. State-funded propaganda, including organizers of the Freedom Convoy that occupied downtown streets earlier this year. Can you believe this absolute propagandist drivel? James Topp, a veteran marching across Canada to protest against remaining vaccine mandates, wrong, is set to end his journey on June 30, but he drove into Ottawa Wednesday to take part in the meetings. He was joined by Paul Alexander. I think you could probably say Dr. Paul Alexander, CBC. The dude worked for it. Bastards. Paul Alexander, a former official in U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, and Tom Marazzo, who served 25 years in the Canadian Forces and had a failed bid as an Ontario MPP candidate. 25 years in the Canadian Forces probably makes Tom Marazzo exponentially, I don't want to say better, a more patriotic, responsible Canadian than the person drafting this article. Marazzo was invited by James Bowder to come help the Freedom. Was invited by James Bowder to come and help run the Freedom Convoy during protests in Ottawa earlier this year. Didn't they say it was an organizer and not a volunteer? Bowder, who is facing charges in Ottawa. My goodness, it's great that they pumped up all those charges. Facing charges in Ottawa and continued to protest in British Columbia after leaving the city in February, is responsible for creating the Canada Unity Group and website that helped develop the initial convoy plan to come to Ottawa. So Marazzo was asked to help by one of the organizers. And so they say CPC MPs are meeting with convoy organizers. It's amazing how they do that. It's beautiful. It's creative dishonesty. Yada, yada, yada. Let me just go. Taking place in a government building near Parliament Hill just days after Ottawa suspended vaccine. Look at this. What are they complaining about? They suspended the vaccine mandates for federal employees and passengers traveling to Canada. Alexander, that's the doctor, Alexander, Dr. Paul Alexander, more credentials than a great many doctors out there, told MPs the COVID-19 pandemic is, you can read that word. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, although the entire restream has remained greenlit on YouTube. Criticized what they call government overreach. In one instance, blaming lockdowns for the May 24th. Oh, wow. I think I know probably what Dr. Paul Alexander said, but I know what someone's going to think by reading this. You are the worst, CBC. You are the journalistic scum of the earth, period. You have no shame. And we're going to get into, when you say shame on you or you try to shame somebody, it's sometimes a last resort when you have nothing else to say. It's also sometimes a last resort after you've exhausted everything you have to say. CBC, you are the journalistic scum of the earth. And but for your $1 billion in federal funding, you would have evaporated into insignificance and bankruptcy long ago. In one instance, Alexander, who we won't identify as a doctor or cite his credentials, blamed the lockdowns for what happened in Uvalde. I have a sneaking suspicion he might have been talking about the distress caused from the social isolation among young people. I suspect he might have been talking about that. Awful, awful people. I'm sorry. Okay, it is a personal ad hominem insult. It is sort of a hyperbolic shame. Yes. Substantively speaking, this is outright journalistic dishonesty. It is just bad journalism, dishonest journalism, journalism that nobody reads. And if it weren't for $1 billion in federal funding with my taxpayer dollars, and I pay a lot of them, CBC would be bankrupt, and rightly so. Topp told MPs that a number of groups formed out of the Freedom Convoy, him coming under the umbrella, yada yada. I think I've had enough of this anyhow. He added he would meet with anybody he wants. Well, hey, the Liberal and the NDP can now feel very empowered not to meet with James Topp, because to meet with him would be to meet with convoy organizers, people who were arrested, and people who suggest that the incident in Uvalde was COVID related. Why would CBC has given the cover to the coward that is Trudeau and the foot-washing coward that is Jagmeet Singh. They've given the cover so that politically and publicly speaking, Justin Trudeau can now say, why would I go meet with that extremist who organized the convoy and his criminal activity, and his quack doctors who suggest that, why would I meet with them? I don't have to. And the ignorant citizenry who read this rubbish are going to say, good for you, Trudeau. Good for you for not fraternizing with those criminals. Doesn't matter. Okay, that's it. Just awful. That's the CBC spin. It's the spin $1 billion can buy. Before we get into the SCOTUS decision, let's just, to really hammer home, there's no other word for it other than inhumanity. I could use the word evil, but evil is sort of thrown around a little too hyperbolically in any event in modern times. Inhumanity. Justin Trudeau has imposed inhumane policy on Canadians. Discriminatory, unconstitutional, inhumane policy on a specific class of Canadians, the unvaccinated. And that would have, in fact, did have a disparate impact on other minorities in Canada. The man who purports to be women's rights, minority rights, Indigenous rights, because it's 2020, the man who purports to be all about minority rights, who demonizes everyone else as misogynists, racists, xenophobes, transphobes, anti-Semites, the one who demonizes others for being intolerant, imposes policy that he knows will and did in fact have a disparate impact on minority groups and on women. Imagine calling someone a misogynist at that Ottawa protest and basically telling a woman, if she doesn't want to submit to this medical procedure for fears that it might have to her body, that she's a misogynist extremist. Oh my goodness. But that's Trudeau, and he gets the cover, he gets the political cover he needs from the media that he funds. Who would have thunk that that's how the circle of corruption would work? This is my tweet. I would say it out loud. Canadians and the world must never forget Justin Trudeau is a creature of immeasurable, unconscionable cruelty. You'll all recall that until this, as the CBC noted, he suspended the vaccine, travel. He just suspended them, didn't end them, didn't enact law to prohibit such unconstitutional violations in the future. Suspended it because come September, we might have to go back to more mandates. He suspended it. It's like, and now people are going to forget because by and large, it didn't affect them. 90% of Canadians are vaccinated or didn't have to get vaccinated, didn't have to suffer the inhumanity of this policy. When it was in place, that unvaccinated Canadians who were not getting exemptions because Justin Trudeau publicly stated he was going to make it exceedingly difficult to get religious exemptions. When the policy was in place, unvaccinated Canadians could not travel on airlines, airplanes, or trains. When they came back, if they left the country, they had to and still have to quarantine for no less than 14 days. But surely, Justin Trudeau is a man of the people. He wouldn't enact a policy that he knew would have and did in fact have a disparate impact on Black Canadians, Latino Canadians, and Indigenous Canadians who statistically remained under-vaccinated or underrepresented in the vaccination status than Caucasian and Asian Canadians. Surely he wouldn't impose such a discriminatory policy without providing humanitarian exceptions. Oh, no. This is from the government website, by the way. It's been updated, so you can go back and find it in the Wayback Machine. COVID-19 boarding flights and trains. This page is about the requirements to board a flight or train in Canada. For the requirements to board a cruise ship in Canada, visit the cruise ship page. And you'll see that's the highlighted section where I clicked on exemptions to the vaccination requirement. Exemptions to the vaccine requirement. Vaccination is required for travel within and out of Canada. A valid COVID-19 test will only be accepted for one of the following limited exceptions. The following are examples of travel that would not be considered emergency and urgent travel: attending weddings and funerals, seeing, caring for sick family members. I'll tell you, we have the shirt. It's Barnes's old expression: never forgive, never forget, hold the line. There's no line to hold here anymore. This is never forgive and never forget. There were people who were denied seeing their sick and dying loved ones and attending the funerals, not because they had COVID, not because they tested positive for COVID, but because they hadn't submitted to a medical procedure, which we now know, fill in the blanks, because you darn well better know it. No. You can't go to a funeral. You can't travel. Hey, if someone, first of all, good luck getting to Victoria Island. You can't even drive there. Good luck getting to Newfoundland if that's where your loved one happens to be. Good luck getting from Montreal to Vancouver in time for a funeral. Can't fly. That's not emergency and urgent travel. No funeral for you. No seeing your sick or care. Not because you're positive. Not because you're sick. Because you haven't submitted to a procedure which is so useful that Justin Trudeau, who is submitted twice and then probably with a little amplification at least once or twice, gets COVID twice within a 5-month period, if we believe what he's saying. He gets to go gallivant around California, shake hands and make selfies with Gavin Newsom, meet Joe Biden, get COVID, and then come back to Canada. He gets to travel. But no negative test. That's not good enough. It's a punishment. It's an inhumane, unconscionable punishment. And people should never forgive and they should never forget, because this is not something that's done by accident. This is not something that's done out of incompetence. This is something that is done out of a power play and malice. Unscientific, unconstitutional, inhumane, unconscionable. And by the way, Jagmeet Singh, you're just as guilty of it right now. Oh my God, this terrible government. You know what's a way to resolve this terrible government? Call another election. No, but you don't want to do that. Your pension. Hold it off. Stave it off for another 3 years so you get your pension, so you can afford a few more of your designer bikes when you're in your 60s, a few more watches than you should have, fancy designer suits. Prop up an unconscionable leader who has done more to destroy the fabric of Canada than anyone in the history of our country. People used to make the joke that Trump was going to be the last president of the United States. I don't know what is left of what was Canada. Oh, sorry, I forgot some chats here. Rant over. Do not ever forget the torture that Justin Trudeau single-handedly imposed on Canadians. It's not because I see some people in the chat. Viva got the jab. He's a hypocrite. Shaming someone for doing something to their body is just as bad as shaming them for not doing something to their body. So everybody says, shame on you, Viva. You're a hypocrite. Congratulations. You're just as bad as the people who say you can't get on a train if you haven't been vaxxed. I told everyone quite clearly why I got vaccinated when I was running for federal office. PPC candidate infecting kindergartners in the park that he plays in because his kid was in that kindergarten probably doesn't make for the best headline. And yeah, I'll take my own risks with my own body, and I will not coerce anybody else to take risks with their own body that they don't want to take with their own body. You should have a sidebar with James Rosen or James Hogan about Watergate after 50 years. I thought I knew about it. I knew nothing. We could do that. That would be a good one with Barnes and maybe Grobert and Hundley. Maybe we do like a round table with the whole party. STFUFFS says, I posted to locals. Did you know Boot? Can't say these things. I don't know anything. I'm not a doctor. There's a number of studies that are coming out now showing things. One day we will be able to have free discussion. But the wonderful thing about it, these idiotic censorship rules, they're not preventing the discussion. They're just transforming the discussion. I can look at you right now and you know exactly what I'm thinking. A lot of new studies coming out. Okay. Hold on a second. Check this out, people. Oh, okay. It's not quite as wavy as I thought it was. I exercised while listening to Barnes on the Duran. Then I took a shower and washed, brushed, and then oiled my hair. I was jogging 8 miles an hour for 35 minutes. I swear to you, because I could see it on my treadmill, on the treadmill, not my treadmill. Barnes went for 18 minutes uninterrupted. It was magnificent. It was magnificent. Okay, so that's James Topp. That's Trudeau. Never forgive, never forget. There are certain things they're unforgivable. Now it doesn't mean anything more than that. And I do believe that Trudeau is going to go down in the annals of it. He's going to go down in the history books as the worst in every single respect. History is not going to be any more kind to Trudeau than the present should be. Imagine what he's done to this country. I hope that WEF stuff was worth it. I hope it was worth it, Trudeau. And by the way, just in case anybody thinks I'm crazy, it's funny. Where's the Twitter? The tweet was Canadians in the world. It's this one. Just so everybody appreciates this. Just Justin Bieber, Justin Trudeau, WEF. Look at this. It's such a beautiful landing page. Look at he's so handsome. He's so good. Look, can you imagine? First of all, I'm joking. Not that he's physically unattractive, but the filth within, the spiritual filth, is enough to make even Amber Heard unattractive. But just look at this landing page. It's amazing. It's amazing. What WEF, WTF is Justin Trudeau doing on the WEF landing page? It's not a landing page. What WTF does Trudeau have a WEF landing page? It's amazing. It's just amazing. We have infiltrated the Canadian Parliament. Yeah, you have. You certainly have. Okay. Do we want Ethan Klein, Jordan Peterson, Gab before the Second Amendment? No. We shall do the Second Amendment. Let's remove that. I want to see that. They have penetrated the cabinet. More than half of the cabinet has been penetrated. Political violation is what that is. Foreign political violation into national politics. And it was conspiracy theory 2 years ago. Oh boy. Okay. I'm going to bring up the, so the bottom line, Supreme Court, we'll do this for a bit because there's some funny stuff. You can watch the MSM review and you can look at the commentators on both sides of the debate and you can know who's right, who's wrong, who's educated, who's ill-informed. You can know it just by the arguments that they raise. Okay, let's do this here.
Current New York law says anyone seeking a license to carry a gun outside their house must demonstrate, quote, proper cause to obtain one. Proper
cause is going to be the center point of the regulation that was at issue that led to this decision. The two individuals, this is an overview of the case, 30,000 foot overview. I do not know it in as much detail as Barnes or a great many other people. So take everything, this summary with a grain of salt, although I think I've got sufficient gist. Two individuals sought concealed carry permits under New York law. So the states in these cases all enacted state law, or the idea here is that some states enacted state law regulating concealed carry. The question was, is it unconstitutional in that it impedes on a Second Amendment federal constitutional right? Within the regulation, it said you can't get a concealed carry unless you show not probable cause, proper cause. Proper cause, which was not defined in the regulation, but read to mean, hold on, I just took the note, a unique need for self-defense. There were other proper causes like target shooting and whatever, but one of the proper causes to get a concealed carry permit in New York under that regulation, proper cause, which was unique need for self-defense. Okay. And then the question was whether or not this violates the Second Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the Second Amendment. So fair protection, equal protection under the law, that being the Second Amendment constitutional right to self-defense. Okay, carrying on. If I can hit play.
Which state courts have said is a special need for self-protection.
I didn't even need to have my notes. Okay, and then listen to their first expert, and then you'll just see who do you think understands the issue and who presents the more compelling argument.
Question before the Supreme Court right now is whether New York can do that. Do you need to show that you have this risk to be able to have concealed carry, or can anyone on the R train now have a gun in their back pocket?
By the way, it's amazing now that I've read enough of the decision. Can anyone on the R train be carrying a concealed weapon? Well, there is an issue that, setting aside overturning this regulation, there can be reasonable limitations on where you can conceal carry, and on the subway might not be one of them. And it's funny, when I was in Virginia, and I just noticed it was at one of the museums in Harper's Ferry, had a sign that said, you cannot come in with a firearm, which means that you can carry one around elsewhere. So already, even within this expert, for anybody who knows, there's a bit of straw manning, because the issue does not become you can carry one wherever you want into a museum or wherever. The issue is proper cause. Is it sufficiently ambiguous? And does it impose an unfair burden on exercising a constitutional right? Court said, yes, it was an unconstitutional burden on the Second Amendment right to self-protection, an extension of the Heller decision from, I guess, more than a decade ago.
Challengers to the law argued the Second Amendment protects the right to carry firearms outside the home for self-defense, while supporters warn invalidating the restrictions could lead to more firearms on the streets.
This is an argument we hear all the time, and it was addressed by the court. I am fairly certain it was addressed by the court. The idea that, first of all, it will necessarily lead to more firearms on the streets.
Invalidating the restrictions could lead to more firearms on the streets.
It necessarily will, because it will allow law-abiding citizens to carry firearms on the streets. So it depends on what you mean by more firearms on the streets. Typically, colloquially, when we hear that, we understand that to mean criminals carrying criminal guns for criminal purposes. That's typically mean guns on the streets. You don't understand, or nor are you intended to understand, guns on the streets as including, for example, police officer guns. Police carry guns. You would not refer to that as more guns on the street. So they're clearly fudging, blending two ideas here. It will result in more guns on the streets, but not illegal guns on the streets, and not in the sense that everyone is concerned about more guns on the streets.
Supporters also maintain the Second Amendment was adopted to allow militias to fight the government, not allow everyday citizens to carry weapons for personal defense.
Okay. That was one of the arguments raised in the decision. It was only for militia. Hold on. I don't want to go to it. Was only for a well-regulated militia. I'm going to bring it up afterwards. We read the provision. A well-regulated militia and the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the wording. So one of these arguments is, because this only pertains to handguns, small arms, not rifles, not long arms, that the Second Amendment only refers to a well-regulated militia, which doesn't mean that individuals get to carry guns, concealed carry on the street. The court will throw that argument out and say, no, it's twofold, the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia to fight government tyranny if need be, and the right to self-defense, the right to the preservation of the safety and security of your person. So they tossed that argument as well, and I think 6-3 decision, by the way, I think rightly so.
Question here is just a very narrow one. Can any state, not just New York, say, can you not have a gun when you're walking around town unless you're special? So the question is the default rule you can have the gun and you need to take it away only for someone with a mental illness, or is the default rule you can't have the gun and you could only have it if you have a special need for safety?
Even after the shootings.
That's sort of the question. Is it only for special people? Is self-defense only for special people? Is the right to bear arms, which shall not be infringed, only for special people to carry a firearm in public to protect themselves? Court says no. And the court says your proper cause, the unique, which has no definition, but it has been read to mean unique need for self-defense. Can you imagine being told you have no unique need for self-defense? It's only the special people, which is probably the people who already have enough means for their own hired security. The everyday citizen has no special need for self-defense. And that's basically what it's saying.
In Buffalo, Texas, Tulsa, Philadelphia, and Chattanooga over the course of just a few weeks, the majority conservative court ruled anyone.
Oh, by the way, hold on. I cut this off. You got to hear this. This is some classic fake news spin.
If you have a special need for safety.
Even after the shootings in Buffalo, Texas, Tulsa, Philadelphia, and Chattanooga.
Even after the various shootings.
For the course of just a few weeks, the majority conservative court.
By the way, do you know what a non sequitur is? That's a non sequitur.
Ruled anyone can carry a gun anywhere.
It's a non sequitur and a bit of a straw man. It's a non sequitur because the premise has nothing to do with the conclusion. Even after a bunch of shootings throughout the country, the court came to the conclusion that people can carry a firearm for self-defense. I'm going to go out and venture. I don't know all of these cases. I don't know all of the cases she's referring to.
Even after the shootings in Buffalo, Texas, Tulsa, Philadelphia, and Chattanooga.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say those were probably illegal use of firearms. Probably illegal use of firearms. And some are going to go out and say, which could have been potentially averted had people been allowed to conceal carry. Let me just see which, because I think the first one was in Buffalo, New York, where this particular regulation prevented law-abiding citizens from having concealed carries, which would effectively prevent them from ever countering an unlawful use of a firearm. And I'm gonna go out on another limb. Probably the individuals who carried out these crimes probably did not apply for a concealed carry permit in the first place. If one is going to break the law, one is not going to apply for a permit to legally carry a firearm in public so they can then use it for criminal purposes. But it's so subtle. Even after a bunch of illegal acts involving people who used probably unlawfully procured firearms, but definitely used them for unlawful purposes, even after that, the court says individuals cannot lawfully procure and use for self-defense firearms. It's not only a non sequitur, it probably actually, if properly explained, justifies the conclusion of the court.
Over the course of just a few weeks, the majority conservative court ruled anyone can carry a gun anywhere.
That's actually just factually incorrect. I think they said that the states could probably still enact regulations to restrict certain areas, so long as it's rational and a reasonable limitation. But
Attorney Andrew Lieb says New Yorkers should brace for a shift in expectations.
Wait till you see this. But thus far, people, who's convinced by the expertise of that expert lawyer Lieb? I'm not.
We've lived since 1911 with a law that said most people you're talking to don't have a gun on them. And now you're going to feel like most people you are talking to do have a gun on them. And that creates a different energy going on. Most of us in New York knew if we wanted to live in that environment, we could move to Texas.
But
great point. Great point. I don't know what the crime stats are between New York and Texas, or New York City and Austin, but Austin might be a bad example because of certain policies. We could rest assured, hitherto, maître is what we say for lawyer in Quebec, Lieb Esquire. Hitherto, we could take for granted that when speaking with law-abiding citizens, we could take for granted, or at least in New York, when speaking with law-abiding citizens, we could take for granted that they are law-abiding citizens and therefore not breaking the law by concealed carry a firearm. We could take that for granted. We could not take for granted that when speaking with individuals who might be criminals, that they might not be respecting the law and might be concealed carrying, unlawfully so, firearms. Let's just follow the reasoning, Lieb. Hitherto, we could take for granted when talking to law-abiding citizens, they would not be breaking the law. Okay. Hitherto, under what will be the new regulation, we can take for granted that we might be talking to a law-abiding citizen who might lawfully be carrying a lawfully procured and lawfully carried concealed weapon. Am I to now think that this otherwise law-abiding citizen, who is now still respecting the law by having applied for, gotten the proper permit to abide by the law to conceal carry within the limits of the law, is now just going to pull it out and go crazy and just break the law? So yeah, when you're dealing with law-abiding citizens and you know they're law-abiding, you can count on them to abide by the law. If you don't want that, you can go to Texas.
Attorney David Schwartz.
Okay, now here, take David Schwartz. Listen to his arguments and see who makes the more compelling argument.
Says the High Court's ruling simply allows regular people to carry a handgun in the state, not just the privileged few, celebrities, ex-cops, those with cash businesses as it is currently.
Someone who works late at night, that's leaving work late, it could be a nurse, it could be anybody that has to walk around late at night. They don't have a right now to get a carry permit.
Well, they have the right, but they have to show the unique need for, I'm just going to put my note up here, the unique need for self-defense. So maybe a nurse who's leaving a bad area at night might be able to make that argument. Maybe. But what was clear from the case, it was exceedingly difficult and capricious, arbitrary, where people were denied the permit, as the two petitioners, willy-nilly, relying on the better discretion of some bureaucrat. So a bit of a straw man. But the point is, now everyday people who feel the need, maybe because crime is going through the roof in a great many cities, feel the need, they can conceal carry, and some bureaucrat can't say, nah, you're not important enough, but Angelina Jolie is.
The idea that criminals now will go out and start applying for licenses, for carry permits, I think is a little bit illogical. It's going to be people that...
He's right. You cannot argue with logic. Criminals who were hitherto carrying guns to commit crimes or for criminal purposes, robbing a store, whatever, responding to a fight between clans. I don't know what the words I'm looking for. They're not going to now go apply for a permit so they can legally carry the gun, if concealed carry, so they can then use it for illegal purposes, because that only goes past the first incident of lawfully carrying it and then using it for criminal purposes. And I suspect there will probably be some restrictions in any event on who can lawfully carry a concealed weapon as relates to criminal history and the like. You can't argue with logic. It's just the way logic works.
Can't show an extraordinary purpose, but still want to carry a gun. And that really does fall within the heart of the Second Amendment.
Schwartz says the state will still be allowed to regulate where people can carry firearms and may exclude certain places like the subway system.
But we just heard the first guy say that every Tom, Dick, and Harry can now get on the subway pack and heat. And even if they could, I'm not so concerned about a law-abiding citizen who's lawfully applied for the permit, carrying it for their own self-protection. Where it becomes a legitimate concern is if they, a citizen who lawfully procured the permit, concealed carry, if they drop it, if it discharges accidentally, if they're negligent in how they deal with it, if they forget it in the bathroom, like some Capitol Police officer. That's where, if there were stats to show that when you make it more accessible to the public to conceal carry for protection purposes, people just forget their guns willy-nilly everywhere. They just go off left, right, and center, shoot people in the legs. Then you might have an argument. From what I understand of the decision, the dissenting opinions were not providing those statistics. They were providing suicide statistics. They were providing 100-year-old case law.
Ballparks and schools. The High Court struck down the New York law on the grounds it's too strict and gives too much discretion to state licensing officials.
Too strict and too much discretion is one way of saying vague and arbitrary. I mean, it's an amazing thing, by the way, because one makes it sound like there was logic to the system and they were just applying it strictly, whereas the reality was there was no logic. It was willy-nilly, arbitrary, and therefore purely capricious.
The ruling marks a disappointment to many New Yorkers who think federal gun regulation should be stronger, not weaker.
Well, this is mixing up an argument as well, because they're talking about federal gun regulations in the context of a state law that infringed on a constitutional right. So this is a problem when you don't understand the subject matter enough. But the citizenry, if you want stricter federal gun laws, then that's where you go to do it. I mean, but the issue is still going to be, can the feds, barring a constitutional amendment, infringe on a constitutional right?
The state of New York has made strides in reducing gun violence, and
this 2019 called "It Wants Its Statistics Back."
they continue to do so. We need the federal government to step up and to prioritize life-saving gun safety measures.
This person does not realize that she just made the compelling argument for striking down that state law that infringed on a constitutional right. If that is the argument, if you want the change, it's got to come from the federal level, and it's got to be by way of constitutional amendment in theory. Or there's, creative ways like eliminating liability for gun manufacturers so that they get bankrupted through lawsuits in highly politicized or political districts. That woman inadvertently made the argument justifying this court decision. It's not done through the state level firearm restrictions. It's not done at the state level. And if you want this change, constitutional amendment at the federal level.
New York State has no recourse on the SCOTUS ruling, barring a change in justices or a constitutional amendment.
Biden said it recently, is that you're not going to win the fight, I'm paraphrasing, on what the Second Amendment says. But what we can do is take away the liability protections on the federal level.
Here you go. If we can't get it directly, we're going to get it indirectly.
For the manufacturers. And even though then the government wouldn't be restricting people from having guns, the manufacturers, based on exposure concerns, would themselves restrict people from having guns.
Lieb pointed to the settlement reached in February that forced Remington to pay $73 million.
Yep. Oh, sorry, $73 million.
After the Sandy Hook massacre. Remington was the maker of the rifle used in that 2012 school shooting. The settlement bankrupted the gun manufacturer. In the newsroom, Jessica Moore.
So, I mean, it's actually fascinating because, and it shows you the game of politics. If you lose on the merits, try to do indirectly what the court basically said you can't do directly. And if this is where we're going, people, if this is where we're going, bankrupt the manufacturers of anything that, when used properly but for criminal purposes, causes damage. If someone poisons their husband, I don't know why I go straight to husband. If someone poisons their spouse with rat poison, bankrupt the rat poison manufacturers. Product designed for its intended use, did not malfunction, but was used for criminal purposes. Those are the three relevant points. Abstractify it from the tool, from the object. There is nothing uniquely. Someone's going to say, well, guns are only meant to destroy. False. Just false. Okay. They're meant for hunting. They're meant for self-defense, which I guess is a form of destruction. They're meant for target shooting. They're meant for a slew of other things other than illegal purposes. Vehicles, not switchblades because those are illegal in most places. Knives, Spyderco knives. Someone uses it for a stabbing. Why wouldn't the rationale be the exact same? It was made very sharp, so sharp it sliced right through the person. It was easy to open, so easy to open. The criminal opened it quickly, so sharp, cut through the person and ended that person's life. Sue Spyderco, bankrupt Spyderco for the proper functioning of their object that was used for criminal purposes. Not as though someone's using a Spyderco knife and it's one of those lock blades and the lock blade doesn't work and it accidentally slices an artery and the person bleeds to death. Defective product leading to harm, of course you sue the manufacturers. But the proper functioning of something that is used for illicit purposes, and now you want to open up the floodgates to bankrupting the companies for criminal use that people decide to make of their products. Let's see where that goes. It's not going to be anywhere good. I'm going to just pull up a few highlights from the decision. At least some important, some relevant parts. Let me just get, okay, so did I miss this super chat? I'm going to flag this. Not flag, star. Sorry, I'm not flagging anything in any nefarious censorshiporial purpose. Where did I put the decision? Share screen. I think I got to go to tabs for this. Yeah, this is it. Okay, now I'm going to see in my notes. Are we looking at the same thing, people? How do I get rid of this? Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to waste too much time doing that. Just a few interesting passages. Let me make sure we're looking at the same thing. We are good. I had page 3. Well, we're going to do this. This might not be as fun as it was when I was doing it on my own. Page 3. To determine, let's see here, to determine whether a firearm regulation is consistent with the Second Amendment, Heller and McDonald point toward at least 2 relevant metrics. First, whether modern and historical regulations imposed a comparable burden on the right of armed self-defense. And second, whether that regulatory burden is comparably justified. Because individual self-defense is the central component of the Second Amendment right. These 2 merits are central considerations when engaging in an analogical inquiry. I loved at one point in the decision, I don't know if I can find it. Imagine someone said, when you're exercising your First Amendment rights, what's the word I'm looking for? You'd better have proper cause. You better have proper cause to be saying those words. And a necessity. You better have a necessity to say those words. The Second Amendment, it's an interesting thing, the argument that there's a hierarchy among the amendments and that the Second Amendment is almost as important as the First Amendment. But at the very least, it's exceedingly important. That's why it's the Second Amendment. Whether or not it's on par with the First Amendment, it's exceedingly important. A well-regulated militia, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. I think I don't know, actually, I forget now whether or not the amendments, because of their order, are hierarchical. But just imagine someone said, you better have a proper cause to exercise your First Amendment. That would fly about as far as a Led Zeppelin. Does everybody know that that's actually the story of how Led Zeppelin got their name? They said they're gonna be as good. They're gonna be as successful in their band as the flight of a Led Zeppelin. You better have proper cause for speaking them words. It's not going to get very far. And some bureaucrat saying you better have proper cause to exercise your Second Amendment right to self-defense didn't go any further. Okay, so I'll pull that up in a second. Let's just get some super chats so I don't lose this. Nothing to add. Just want to say thanks for your channel and information you provided. Christopher Conard. That looked like canard, which is duck in French, but it's with an O, not an A. Thank you, and thank you all for allowing this channel to become what it is. I get to learn things in real time and have fun doing it and make a living doing it. I love this stuff. I love learning in real time. I think I know so much more now about the Constitution, American law, Canadian law for that matter, than I did 4 years ago. I love doing it, and I'm glad people also enjoy watching it. Viva, please thank James on behalf of all of us peeps for his patriotism and endurance. I saw that one earlier and did. What would Bernhard Goetz go say? That's the guy who was on the subway in the 70s in New York, right? I think. Bernhard Goetz. Yes, it is. How does the dissent account for the fact that one of the shootings at the top of the list took place in Buffalo? The New York law at issue in this case obviously did not stop that perpetrator, Justice Alito. Not just that. It's not that the law didn't stop the perpetrator. It also prevented other people from stopping the perpetrator. The thing is this, bass player 2011 Iffy, that's an interesting name. It's not just that it didn't stop the person, it made it impossible for other people to stop the person. And it's not like, the thing is this also, anybody who's applying for a concealed carry permit, I suspect they're either going to, there's a risk. They're either going to be applying for this and not have any idea what goes into actually carrying a firearm in public. It means if you're carrying it, it means that something happens, you might be using it. It takes I don't know, not a special breed of person to do that, but it takes someone who's committed to that. From what I understand, in any event, the CCW permit process is relatively arduous and pretty hands-on. You learn. It's not a toy. If you're not ready to do this, you're not going to do it. So people who would have been concealed carry in that area presumably would be ready to use it if something happened. So it's not just that it didn't stop the act of criminality, it actually exacerbated it when it occurred. There's the old joke, an armed society is a polite society. There's exceptions to that, and it's not necessarily as simple as that. But I can tell you one thing, criminals might think twice. There is the argument that criminals might think twice, and it might make them even more aggressive in their criminal conduct. Or it might make them go look for softer targets, which might be why certain things tend to happen in certain soft, gun-free zones. Vivi, you really need to get Tracy Wilson from the CCFR to talk about the handgun freeze in Canada. Screen grabbed. Andre, I'm going to see if I can find the person. Hitherto, criminals could take for granted the victim they confront would be unarmed. Yes. And sorry, I didn't mean to make fun. This is when I see hitherto, I immediately break into Viva Golf voice. Hitherto for. But yeah, it's whether or not it's going to make criminals more brazen. Because if they have to assume that everybody around them is potentially armed, they'll be even more brazen in their criminality, or not. I mean, I'm not sure. You look at countries with the highest firearm homicide rates, or the highest firearm gun violence. They tend to be places with high regulated, high degree of regulation. South America in particular. And then the counter argument is that, well, South America has high gun crime, not because of gun laws, but because of corruption. Criminality will find a way. California is following San Jose City ordinance requiring all gun owners to have civil liability for any use of their firearm, even if it was stolen and the thief committed the crime. Mark, so I'm not sure that I disagree with that so much. Liability for use, even if it was stolen. If it's stolen and reported, that would be the end of the liability. So where it would be an issue is if it's stolen and the individual does not report it. That's not unheard of. That's not. I would be shocked if a high court would say that's an undue burden on exercising your Second Amendment right. The argument might be that poor people might not be able to afford civil liability insurance. I'd have to flesh that argument out in my brain, actually, because I was going to compare it to driving and not being able to afford insurance, but driving is not a constitutional right. The right to bear arms is. If you make it financially, what's the word I'm looking for? Prohibitively expensive to carry the insurance that would be needed for civil liability, there'd be an argument there. But like, I fly a drone. Under Canadian drone laws, I had to have $1 million personal liability insurance in order to fly a drone lawfully. A drone that weighed 250 grams or more on takeoff. So there's something there, but I don't think that's egregiously shocking. That might make a little bit of sense. Most ASs have obtained guns with laws in place that would prevent them. Almost 95% has been a failure of the government to enforce current laws. Why trust them with more? Really now, We talked about it yesterday. Was it yesterday? The Nova Scotia shooting, worst one in Canadian history. They don't mention the fact, they're not too keen on mentioning the fact that that individual had procured his firearms unlawfully, illegally smuggled the small arms and unlawfully procured the long arms. They don't like to mention that. Even that they use as the pretext for more gun bans under the Order in Council. I don't know if all of them were unlawfully procured, but many of them were. But they don't like to mention that because that would mean that the existing laws they already have don't do anything or the existing laws are not being enforced properly. And by imposing even more laws, tell you what, the people who are never going to follow them in the first place still are not going to follow them. Hello from California or Canada? No, California. What does this mean for the timeline process for overturning cases decided by intermediate scrutiny? Example, Miller v. Bonta, Duncan v. Bonta. Okay, that's a question that I had. I went looking through that decision to see if they definitively addressed the intermediate scrutiny versus strict scrutiny versus rational basis. My understanding is that it's sort of affirmed was it intermediate scrutiny? I think it was intermediate scrutiny. Barnes and I are going to talk about this on Sunday, and Barnes will know. The man will know. And I know the limits of my own ability to read a 115 page decision in 2 hours, even to be able to talk about it. Rob from Law and Lumber said this morning, read the ruling, but substitute speech instead of gun. It makes it very clear. Absolutely. I mean, that was one of Thomas's points in the decision. Says the first and the second are the most important. And if it wouldn't fly for the first, it's not going to fly for the second. Can we apply the same logic to rushed? Really now, don't get me in trouble. Let me just read. Let's all read it together. But if you listen to Joe Biden, the gun manufacturers are the only company with immunity. And you know what? It's not even analogous, because if the object, if the substance, if the product worked properly, you don't have to worry about a lawsuit. In one case, they want to go after the manufacturers for the proper but unlawful use of the fully properly functioning product. They want to allow people to go after them. In the other case, they immunize the manufacturer from the potential improper functioning or prejudicial or harmful functioning of the product. Immunize the potential negligence, incompetence, or worse on the one side, while what's the word when you make something about liability? While opening up the liability on the other side to a company that did nothing wrong but create a proper functioning object that was used for illegal purposes. This shows you where the priorities are at in the minds of the politicians. Intermediate scrutiny uses studies to amend the decision rather than what the lawmakers intended. I'm not sure if that's okay. So hold on, bring this back up here, and let's just see something here. I think we'll cheat. Hold on, let's see if I can get to one of the other pages that I knew was interesting. 15 and 19. The only problem is the pages start again on the other person's either concurring or dissenting opinion. There was something that I said on page 15 was interesting to read. Oh yeah, well that's the thing. In sum, I won't highlight it. In sum, the Court of Appeal's second step is inconsistent with Heller's historical approach and its rejection of means and scrutiny. We reiterate the standard for applying the Second Amendment is as follows. When the Second Amendment's plain text covers an individual's conduct, the Constitution presumptively protects that conduct. The government must then justify its regulation by demonstrating that it is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. Only then may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. Page 19 was another interesting one. Let's see what it was. Oh, well, they're going through Heller. That was it. It was forget. Okay. We'll start here. We have already recognized in Heller at least one way in which the Second Amendment's historically fixed meaning applies to new circumstances. Funny thing, you're going to hear. I mean, Joe Biden said it. I think he got fact checked. You couldn't own a cannon in 1776. Yes, you could. Yes, you could. And Barnes talked about it on the Duran, and we'll talk about it Sunday. You could own a cannon because protecting ships was an issue. You could own a cannon because it was necessary for self-defense. The question going to be, and the one that, the nuclear arms, chemical weapons, difference of scale. So here, just as the First Amendment protects us from just as the First Amendment protects modern forms of communication, and the Fourth Amendment applies to modern forms of speech, the Second Amendment extends prima facie to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not in existence at the time of its founding. Thus, even the Second Amendment's definition of arms is fixed according to its historical understanding. That general definition covers modern instruments that facilitate armed self-defense. See if intermediate is in here. There we go. We got. How many times do we have intermediate scrutiny? Hold on. Intermediate 20. Anyhow, that's it. I'll here. You can go read the decision yourselves if you want to. It's interesting. Interesting times, people. Did the Roe v. Wade overturn decision come down? Oh, let me just go refresh on the Rumbles. Then we'll get into some other stuff. So I just got a text from someone that says, okay, there's some funny stuff. We're going to get to the other stuff afterwards. It's an interesting decision. Did I just put it in here? Go read away, people. It's long. Can't say that I read it slowly enough to appreciate the nuance, but I think I got the gist of it. Did Roe v. Wade overturn decision come down? Let's just see that. I don't think it did. That's what I went to my phone to check, and then I forgot in the meantime. Not watching the January 6th committee hearings. It's atrocious. Okay, we're good on the Second Amendment. We're good on the decision. Geez, what was it called? Whatever, we're good on that. Interesting. Let me just make sure that I had nothing else to bring up about it. Okay, we got it. Wait is tomorrow, people are saying in the chat. What day is it today? It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Okay. Not yet, potentially tomorrow, though it's still possible they may not actually overturn. Yeah, no, I'm just saying when the decision comes down. I thought it was going to come today. Okay, good. Let's go to some irrelevant internet drama. Ethan Klein, man. I don't know. This is a concern. Everybody who in this industry, in this field, you want to be relevant, but you want to be relevant for good reasons. You want to be relevant because of the insights that you offer, because of your accuracy, your predictive accuracy, your analytic skills, the value that you bring. At least for me, that's what I want to be relevant. And when I say relevant, I mean in that sense. Don't want to be relevant in an exploitive or juvenile sense. Not going to point, whatever, to each their own. I want to be insightful. I want to be value added. I want to be accurate, and I want to be on point. I can see how at some point some people say, in order to be relevant, you just have to be edgy, or in order to be relevant, you just have to, I don't know, do certain things that you might not have thought you'd ever wanted to do, but for the desire. This is an exchange. I mean, it starts off with a Jordan Peterson tweet where Jordan Peterson says, "Remember when pride was a sin and Ellen Page had her breasts removed by a criminal physician?" Okay. By the way, I didn't know what happened to Page. I had no idea. I remember seeing Juno. I learned it relatively recently. For anybody who doesn't know, go check it out if you don't know. I had no idea what happened to Page. Jordan Peterson tweets this. Some people can disagree with the tweet. I can see now in reading it how some people can be triggered by the tweet, because in the tweet, Jordan Peterson is using a former name that Ellen Page no longer uses. Now Ellen Page goes by Elliot Page. So I think this is called a dead name. And apparently it's taboo, or in certain circles, it's an act of aggression to refer to the dead name, the previous name. The her, that'll go twofold. Because if Ellen Page is now Elliot Page, it will be a double affront to refer to Elliot, who now wants to be referred to as a him, as a her. That would be dead naming and then misgendering in Canada. Breasts removed, which would be the full mastectomy for the transition therapy, I guess, that Page is going through, by a criminal physician. Okay. One can read that tweet and disagree with it. One can read that tweet and even understand the point that is being made in that tweet, but still disagree with it. But one, I don't think, can honestly and credibly take that tweet in order to say Jordan Peterson is Hitler incarnate. I don't think so. At all. I think Jordan Peterson has done already, even if one were to disagree with this tweet, Jordan Peterson has done so much good, offered so much insight, built sufficient goodwill that this is not enough. This is not enough to destroy and write off all of that. Unless you're Ethan Klein. Okay. I love this stuff. I mean, ordinarily, this is internet drama, but there is something to learn from it, and it all goes back. I don't think Scott Adams' Loserthink was the first iteration of this idea of how to detect bad arguments, trolls, people's deficient reasoning skills. I don't think Scott Adams was the first to come to those determinations that he did in his book. And if you haven't read it, read it, Loserthink. But he certainly succinctly summarized it. Ethan Klein, in responding to Jordan Peterson's tweet, says, Jordan, oh, there's so many more. I didn't realize he started it off by saying the first name. Jordan, you have completely lost the plot. Anything that was inspiring about you is long gone. You have whored yourself out. That's offensive. That's demeaning. You have whored yourself out to the worst. I can't even do this in my British golf voice. This has to be like a whiny voice. You have whored yourself out to the worst among us. Now you are nothing more than a useful idiot to the hordes of hateful bigots. I got to tell you, if I'm seeing hate, it's not coming from Peterson's tweet. You have forsaken any semblance of decency. Shame on you. I can't avoid it, people. I can't avoid it. A masterclass of Scott Adams' Loserthink right here. Now we're going to go through this because I couldn't fit it all into one tweet. Ad hominem, which is attacking the individual and not the argument. Name calling is a form of ad hominem. But it's the projection part in this that drives me crazy, is that you're accusing your adversary of doing what you're doing. Imagine Ethan Klein accusing Jordan Peterson of being a useful idiot. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. No, that he's being a useful idiot to the hordes of hateful bigots. It's not even what a useful idiot means, but imagine Ethan Klein is accusing Jordan Peterson of trying to appeal to his hordes of hateful bigots. There was one more element in there. And attempt to shame. When all else fails, shame on you. Now, that can be the conclusion following an argument. And when it's done, and when I do it, I always ask myself the same question. Am I doing it for the hyperbolic purpose? But because whenever I make these assessments, I say, who's going to pull out a tweet where I say, shame on you, Trudeau, or there can be no shame where there is no pride? Yeah, there's a time sometimes. In that entire response, Ethan Klein managed to say nothing other than name-calling, demonizing, doing exactly what he's accusing Peterson of doing, and not actually getting into the discussion of, can an adult do what an adult wants to do with an adult's own body? And, where is the line? And it's a discussion that I got into with we're going to get to that in a second. No. Where I said, look, I can appreciate that people might find Peterson's tweet offensive. I might suggest that if you're offended by that tweet, increase your levels of increase your threshold of sensitivity. Even if you are an individual who would like to be gendered one way, I would say increase your threshold of sensitivity. So that when someone calls you a shape-shifting Jewish lawyer, you say, okay, thank you. Now I know who you are, and I'll know who to invite over for the holidays next Christmas. Increase your. I can understand that, but I think people need to realize that there's no fundamental strength in trying to turn yourself into a victim for insignificant reasons. There's no fundamental virtue in that. But I think we've gone way off the rails on that in terms of thinking there is fundamental virtue in being a victim. But being offended doesn't make you right. And there's no fundamental virtue in walking around feigning offense at the slightest slight. I disagree with Jordan Peterson's tweet, and it led to an interesting discussion on my Twitter feed. Good example of disagreeing with a statement while still respecting the person. Paige is an adult. Adults can do what they want with their own bodies. Physicians perform cosmetic surgery on adults all the time. If Paige were a minor, however, very different story. And this led to a legitimate discussion. One person, I think it's Sigurd, who I think is of good faith and legitimate question. If someone wants to end their own lives, should they be able to do so? Interesting analogy, but I think it's inapplicable. Doing something to your body, which in some sense is somewhat reversible. I mean, a mastectomy is not reversible because I think you're cutting off glands and the nipple, but you can still rebuild those things as opposed to doing things which are fundamentally irreparable, like the woman who identified as a blind person and wanted to, and in fact did proceed to burn her eyes out with acid. I hope that wasn't a booger on my nose the entire time. Ending one's life is fundamentally different than altering one's body. But even still, I think a great many people might say, yeah, people, adults in a sound state of mind, not sure anybody who wants to end their own life for no, obvious reason, by definition is a sound state of mind. But many people say, yeah, let them do what they want with their own body if it doesn't hurt anybody else. And then we get into these types of analogies. Cutting off an arm. If someone says, I want to do that, I want to mutilate my own body. And there's been some very extreme examples where, like the people who tattoo their bodies top to bottom, insert spikes on their foreheads, cut their tongues. There is a line that I think I have that I think should not be crossed, but there's a very big gray zone. And in this debate as to what an adult can do to their body for cosmetic purposes, preference purposes, and whatever, it's a big gray zone. I'll defer to the better judgment of the individual to the extent that it doesn't harm anybody else, to the extent that it's not an adult authorizing it for a minor, to the extent that it's not a doctor doing it to a minor at the assistance of the minor with the authorization of a parent or a court. There's a lot of things that I would not do and that I think are really borderline. Slicing your tongue so it looks like a lizard, inserting spikes under your skin. I mean, these are things that people do. Whether or not I think that there are underlying mental issues to the people doing them, and whether or not I think they might regret them when they're 70 years old, that holds true for a tattoo as well. It's just a different of a degree. So it's an argument, it's a discussion, it's a debate. But what an adult does to their own body of sound mind is on them 99% of the time. But the idea that this is how the debate has to be vitriolic, that if there's disagreement, shame on you, you're a hateful bigot, burning all your records. I mean, it's nuts. But it's a sign. It's unfortunately it's a sign of the times. But it does open. Like, if you have the discussion, it's an actually interesting, meaningful discussion. So people are saying, well, cutting a mastectomy for cosmetic purposes. There's no good reason for it. Some people point out that people have preventative mastectomies just because of the fear of getting breast cancer later in life. So someone who has a preventative mastectomy, how's that different than someone who wants to transition physically from a female form to a male form? And why is one or both equally unjustifiable in the minds of somebody who doesn't have to do it to themselves if they don't want to? Where I said, people who want to have like the biggest breast implants ever, ridiculously big breast implants. Is that as ridiculous as wanting to remove your breasts entirely? This is the life and people come in all flavors. And to the extent that what you're doing only affects you, is not, I tend to draw the distinction at whether or not it's going to be crippling what you do, whether or not it's going to impede your ability to even function as a normal human, a healthy, healthy human. The individual who poured acid on her eyes to blind herself becomes something of a I can't imagine. I mean, that's such a horrific thing to even think of. Causes functional, irreparable incapabilities. Mastectomy, changing your physical appearance, that's on a person. Why we can't have this discussion? Because it became cool to be shocked and outraged and offended, and it made you right. You don't even have to discuss the ideas anymore. I would have the discussion with Peterson. I think I know what he's getting at in all of this. But it was a fun interaction. The do no harm. Okay, and this is a good argument. Doctors take the Hippocratic Oath. Their first principle of being a doctor is do no harm. So no tattoos, no cosmetic nose jobs. That does psychological benefit to the individual if their nose, looks okay. Slicing the tongue, face tattoos, finger tattoos. I mean, those are not done by doctors. Okay, so there's a distinction. Breast enlargement. I mean, the breast enlargement is the easiest one. Or breast reduction. Or, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Could you even have breasts removed to be more effective at sports? Would that be permissible? But the do no harm, agreed. That's the very strong argument, whether or not a doctor will agree to do it. But if an individual says, I'm of sound mind, I do not care, you're not doing harm. In fact, not only are you not doing harm, you're doing pleasure to my psychological state of affairs for whatever fetishes I happen to have. Who are you to judge? Okay. Tattoos aren't doctors. Yes, we got to that one. So we have to stick with Botox in your lips. It's purely cosmetic. No benefit other than to the psychology, the spirit of the individual. I may happen to think that people who feel the need to do things to their bodies in order to feel good about their bodies, above and beyond the normal healthy stuff, exercise and, stay clean, brush your teeth, and they have a different frame of mind than I do. So that's it. It was a fun discussion, but my goodness, you read people's inability to identify the issue and stick to the issue. And it's a learning experience. Now, speaking of not identifying the issue and not sticking to the issue, hold on. Oh no, I didn't bring it up. So I didn't notice that I was getting someone on our locals community brought to my attention. What's going on here? Twitter/the brought to my attention that for whatever the reason, because I'm not in there, www.twitter. I don't know what's going on here. Let me close this up. Twitter.com/ but I had made it into the sites of Gab, the CEO of Gab, as a result of the Rumble rules that Robert Barnes, the draft, the work in progress, submitted for public comment, and we're getting it, and we're going to discuss it. Barnes and I are going to brainstorm among each other, and we'll talk about it Sunday. I didn't know that I had made it into that area of that field of discussion. Someone sent me. Here we go. Someone sent me Andrew Torba's. I think this is either on Telegram or on Gab, and I'm not on either, so I don't know. Let me just see if we're seeing the same thing. Speaking of confusing the subject from the subject matter from the subject. Okay, we're seeing it. This is funny stuff, people. And speaking of dealing with sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm me. This is from Andrew Torba, CEO of Rumble. I just don't understand who's a CEO of a company and wants to define their company by this type of rhetoric. Free to have it. And I don't think Torba, even if this were on Twitter, should be banned for this. I don't even think if this were a tweet, I would not report this tweet. I would not flag this tweet, and I would not tolerate Torba, getting kicked off of Twitter for this tweet. The discussion is about Rumble terms of service as they have been drafted to be compliant with the law of the land in which Rumble operates. Andrew Torba writes, Rumble's new terms of service, written by Jewish lawyer David Freiheit. You got me. You got me. And pro-Zionist Robert Barnes now include a hate speech policy. Who could have predicted this? Don't worry, Gab TV is opening up to everyone very soon and will have a brand new, beautiful look too. Here's my problem. Gab might be a product that might have potential, that might have a place in the digital sphere. Why on earth would the CEO of a company want to define it by this type of... He's free to have it. Why on earth would anyone want to define the company by a CEO who thinks he's proving a point of intention by referring to the religion, albeit very ill-practiced, of the interlocutor acting as an attorney advising under Canadian law, and the apparent alleged pro-Zionist propensities of Robert Barnes, a world-class attorney operating under the operating under American law? Why would anyone want to define who does this appeal to? Free to do it. Who on earth does this appeal to? And then goes to Section D, discriminating against others based on their legally protected status, which will vary by jurisdiction, such as attacking other users or content creators on the platform based on that user's race, religion, or other legally protected status. Legally protected status, jurisdictionally dependent. So, by the way, it's just interesting to note, they're throwing in the term hate speech, which is, yes, it exists under Canadian law and doesn't exist under American law, which is why companies that operate in various jurisdictions nonetheless have to operate under the limitations and restrictions of that local law. It's one of the reasons why, if Bill C-11 passes, some social media platforms might just say, F you, Trudeau, we're out of here. Canada doesn't get YouTube anymore. We're not going to jump through hoops. We're not going to bastardize our platform to operate within the confines of unconstitutional or excessive Canadian law. Piss off, Canada. We got bigger markets out there. That might very well happen. And that's one of the risks of a company enacting fuzzy, willy-nilly speech laws such as hate speech. That being said, when you operate within those countries, you can't defy their law. So, and now you can understand now why pulling out the Jew card and the Zionist argument, because trying to juxtapose with this. But this would be one, juxtapose it with what the individual thinks Section D of the draft Rumble rules submitted for public consultation mean. I'd say he's mistaken in the interpretation. And, so I think I said something. Oh, that's right. Andrew Torba would do well to understand that the Rumble terms of service that Barnes and I meticulously crafted are based on Canadian and United States law, not rabbinical law. Had I come out and said, by the way, these terms of service were inspired, I'm not even sure I'm going to say the word right, were inspired by the Talmud. I inspired myself by historical Jewish tradition as relates to freedom of speech. Then the fact that I happen to be a Jewish, very badly practicing attorney might be relevant. Oh, I'm getting this one here. I got this comment. Then it might be relevant. But to invoke the fact that I'm Jewish to try to attack the intentions or perceived intentions of that is as irrelevant as the fact that I'm short or the fact that I may have come from a wealthy background. I mean, it's as unrelated to the substance of the issue as anything else. But when people tell you who they are, listen. Now, Jack Jackerson, dude, you advertise free speech. He one-ups you with pointing out that you are not free speech. It's advertising, you doofus. Okay, here, first of all, if it's advertising, it's bad advertising because I don't know who he's advertising to. He one-ups me by pointing out you are not free speech. No, he doesn't. And not only does he not one-up me, I don't need him to tell me what Canadian law is. That he's basically complaining about Canadian law. Good for you, Torba. I don't know if Gab actually operates in Canada. He's not one-upping me by saying that I'm not free speech. He's complaining about Canadian law, which I might add, Jordan Peterson has been doing for quite some time, which I've been doing for quite some time. It's, the Bill 16, it was C-16 that added gender identity to aggravating factors of certain criminal infractions. Jordan Peterson spoke up about it. I spoke up about it. That's the risk of bad law. It makes for bad policy. It makes for bad case law. And it makes for a society in which you don't have free speech. Jesus, how many times did I have to complain about the Mike Ward decision? A comedian fined $43,000 by a Quebec Human Rights Tribunal for making jokes about a handicapped celebrity child, Jérémy Gabriel. He's not one-upping anybody. He might be complaining about the fact that a company has to operate within the confines of the law in the countries in which he operates. Good. Take it to the legislature. And by the way, free speech does not mean the right to go around and hurl racial slurs at people. It doesn't. It doesn't mean you have the right to go around and make up lies about people. These people who think free speech is limitless, defamation, public disclosure of private facts, criminal harassment, doxing, stalking. But all that I'm doing is I'm just saying that there's limits. And the limits in Canada, yes, are there are much greater limits in Canada than there are in the United States. Point well taken. Jewish lawyer, but wait, there's more. I'm not even sure I should spend so much time on this, but it is quite funny. There was more. They came back. Listen to this. This is so great. Canada has hate speech laws, which explains why Rumble now has them too, seeing as Rumble is a Canadian company. Thanks for proving my point. My point was that the companies will operate within the confines of the law. Within the company will operate, presumably. You can't break the law of the country which you're in. Thanks for proving my point. Yeah, that wasn't so much your point. There was another issue that I took issue with. If Rumble's terms of service were based on U.S. law, they would look like Gab's. Again, misreading the provision that says we will operate within the bounds of the law. Misreading it. I don't know if it's deliberate or unintentional, but whatever. Typical shapeshifter trying to lump in and conflate U.S. laws with Canadian law. An individual who can't understand the distinction that there is both Canadian law and U.S. law for a company operating in both U.S. and Canada. But does everybody know what the shapeshifter is? Who knows what the shapeshifter is? And by the way, shapeshifter meaning. A person being able to shift one's shape at will. I don't think that's what the individual meant. Shape shifter. Borat.
The Yemenites were also jewelers. I have lots of pictures of. Do you?
Listen. Where's the part where he says, I want to see the part where he says the shape shift. I mean, we've all seen this movie.
You're going to hit
Take a.
Oh, I'm not even going to get to it.
do something because you're hungry and then you're guest.
Yes. We're not going to get to it. It's from Borat, people. The shape that Borat, this individual Torba, is actually appealing to Borat level shapeshifter terminology. Does everybody know that Sacha Baron Cohen is Jewish? Does everybody, by the way, know that Borat, I forget what his last name is, in the movie when he's speaking purported Kazakhstan, he's speaking Hebrew. By the way, I rewatched Borat. I now realize how maliciously bad faith that entire movie was. Was it the second one? The second one was even worse. But the Jewish lawyer, David Freiheit, and now I'm being called a shapeshifter. I mean, it's fine. If someone thinks that that's good advertising, I think they're wrong. I don't know who that advertising is supposed to appeal to, but now I understand Barnes's tweet from earlier in this week where someone said, how's Viva going to stick up for Barnes's tweet? Oh, yeah. No. And by the way, Sacha Baron Cohen, not only he came out and complained about censorship, that there should be more censorship, I think. Anyhow, it's funny. So that was the learning lesson from all of that, by the way. Barnes and I will talk about the impugned provision, because it is like we didn't draft that or phrase it accidentally. And the provision D, with which some people are concerned and take issue, which says Rumble will operate within the legal bounds of the countries within which it's operating. Does nobody understand this? There's a reason why you get German warnings when your tweet might have broken German law. Twitter's available in Germany. And if it's available in Germany, it's got to comply with German law. If it's available in Canada, it's got to abide by Canadian law, at least within Canada, failing blocking Twitter to Canadians, which is what Facebook did to Australia for a bit. Make it too hard to do what you do in the country, we'll just shut it off. So now I forget the thought that I was going with in that. Oh, son of a beast. Yeah, the German law Twitter. We crafted that provision specifically. And it specifically says you're going to operate within the limits of the laws, and that's going to be jurisdictional. Some people might not like the laws, and that I appreciate. Jack Jackerson, Viva, it means you, the platform, are not the publisher, and the issue of defamation or libel is not your problem. It's the person who posted it. That's true and not true. That's if the company knows, one second, if the company knows and leaves certain types of material up there, there is exposure. So that's the same thing for criminality if it's known and left up and there's no policies in place to remove it. That's the whole issue. If there's policies in place, good faith policies to remove the infringing material that breaks the law of the land, this is Section 230 of the states, applied mutatis elsewhere. If there are provisions in place, processes in place to remove unlawful infringing material, the platform will not be held liable if it misses some, or or they won't be accused of censorship if they do. So it's a nuanced discussion, and this provision wasn't drafted overnight on a napkin on a corner of a table at a diner. This is months and years of personal and legal experience on the interwebs. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to go to the chat. I want to see if I missed anything. Viva Fry, not American. Freedom of speech means that I have the right to post what I want, and if I get sued for it, so be it. Try posting a threat to someone's life online and see what happens. And see what happens if the platform knows that it's there and doesn't remove it. What's up? What? You can stay here, but just don't make noise. Here, take my phone and play on my phone. 548. Sweet, merciful goodness. Have I missed anything? Let me just see something here. We're having a barbecue with friends. Ooh, I might be very late for something. So no, it's not just see if I get, if a platform knows that there's unlawful content up and doesn't do anything to remove it, they expose themselves. And another thing, by the way, we'll see if the marketing gambit works off for the CEO of Gab. I think a lot of people now might actually see that a lot of the accusation, look, maybe Gab is probably, or at the very least, I'm not even sure I would call it awful, but lawful. I don't think it's quite that awful. Torba's tweets or Torba's messages. I don't think it's awful. I just think it's I don't know why you would want to brand your company along that. It's nice. Oh, he's proving what a proponent of free speech is. First of all, you're not proving that you're a proponent of free speech by what some might consider to be verbally abusing somebody. That might be a little bit of a lofty way to describe it. You're not proving that you're a proponent of free speech by doing that. You would prove that you're a proponent of free speech by tolerating that. Let that sink in. So I don't even think it's awful but lawful. I think it's definitely impolite, and I think it's intended to be. But he should have the right to do it, as should his platform. I'm just not sure why he thinks that's going to be good marketing to the vast majority of people who might not like being, I don't know, racially, I don't even know if it was berated, but rather suggestive names or intentions attacked based on religion. That's what it was. Doesn't bother me because it's as baseless as calling me the tallest man on earth, but whatever. So anyways, that's funny. Thanks to Elon, Gab is on its way out. Don't give credence to the reeing oasis. No, but he's entitled. First of all, I support free speech specifically so that now I know. Hitherto, I had only heard, and I didn't know what people were talking about. Now I know. It's fine. It's not going to be a place for me. And I support free speech in the most sincerest and genuine manner possible. I've never blocked anyone on Twitter. There have only been a couple of incidents on YouTube, and it wasn't because I didn't like what they said. Just for pissing Andrew off. I'm a big fan of his. Can't you tell? Dustelov Man Kadi. Thank you very much. There are 4 lights. Still haven't seen the episode, but I remember it every time I see. Okay, now let's see. Torba has the right to say what everybody also accepts the outcome of his speech. Okay, good. I think he's either deliberately or it doesn't even matter. He's misunderstanding the provision as drafted, period. Barnes and I will talk about it Sunday night after we reconvene and actually not internalize, what's the word? Consider and potentially implement some changes based on public comment that we've received. And I think I have to go. Can you go upstairs? Is Mom upstairs? Where's Mom? Where is she? Do you know where Mom is? Can you text Mom? Do you know how to use a phone? No, you don't. Okay. Remember when Rush Limbaugh called the transition surgery an addictomy? I miss Rush. I don't know what that means. Florida Dad, how you doing? I think I haven't seen you in a while. Addictomy. I have to look at what that means. But anyways, don't need to go back to what I said there. Full-grown adults of sound mind who are not going to do something they're going to regret radically in a manic or a not wherewithal state can do what they want. That's what being an adult means. It means living with the consequences of your action. You can rebuild breasts cosmetically, not functionally. True, because there are glands in there. Same glands that sometimes cause cancer, which hence lead to the desire for preventative mastectomies. Speaking of free speech, let's just see if we're still green on YouTube. We are still green. Dastalov Akmankari, stream on the second moment, and you didn't even tell me. Viva, you should know better. Second Amendment. I'm talking to a few thousand people right now. Speaking of which, actually, hold on. Let me just see if there's anything on Rumble. Got a kid here. He's playing bowling on a thing that I didn't even know we had. Looking at no Rumble rants, and I'm not gonna be able to read the comments. What is it? Holy hell, Viva. Okay, what do we got here? Justin Reeves. Transitioning does affect others. Individuals that transition place a massive burden on others due to extreme costs of the social welfare system. Okay, so without commenting on the accuracy of that, flip side, smoking. So there are some decisions that people make to their own bodies that will satisfy this very same argument. And I know that some people might say smokers should pay more tax or they should pay higher premiums. But I don't know that anyone would say that smokers should therefore not get to smoke, even though they're doing something to their own bodies, which might have incidental costs to the system. To steel man the opposing argument. Yeah, that story, the woman who I dreamt of being blind and actually did it. It's inconceivable to me that person could be a sound mind. And I don't know that a doctor administered it. I'll have to refresh my memory on the story. Dude, you advertise free speech. No one. Okay, sorry, we got to that one already. New member, Janet Partridge. Look at that dog. Oh, the dog in the avatar. And it's looking at a frog. The way to my heart is through a dog. And what do we got here? Thanks. Okay, we got that. Okay. Let me see here. Enjoy the barbecue, Viva Freisters. Yeah, it's at a friend's house who you know whose friend. No, not them. Currently spend more time on Viva and YouTube locals. Dude, our locals community is magnificent. Okay, so that's it. That was phenomenal. Did I forget anything in the backdrop? Hold on. Let me just pull up my notes. My Twitter notes. I've got to do it. I've got to do it before we go. The Putin price hike. going on? Okay, hold on 1 second. StreamYard. We're looking at the same thing. Putin price hike, people. You want to talk about someone pissing in your face and telling you that it's raining? Listen to this. So good. I'm doing everything I can to blunt the Putin price hike. Capitalized. They went to a focus group and they said, call it the Putin price hike and capitalize it. It's a defined term. I actually went to see if they trademarked it because someone in the section made a comment like, haha, they've trademarked it. They haven't, that I can see. It would be hilarious if they did. But they've capitalized it. This is focus group that cost millions of dollars, like the episode of The Simpsons when Lisa goes to the future and becomes president and Milhouse is telling her, what do we call this new tax? And then Milhouse says, well, how about we call it a colossal tax grab? It's like, yeah, you see, that doesn't have the right sound. How about a temporary refund adjustment? Putin price hike is the temporary refund adjustment. I'm doing everything I can to blunt the Putin price hike and bring down the cost of gas and food. Like canceling the Keystone Pipeline on your first day in office, because that didn't just screw you guys in America, that screwed us in Canada as well. I led the world to coordinate the largest release from global oil reserves in history. First of all, that's because you made the problem in the first place. And I'm working to get 20 million tons of grain out of Ukraine to help bring down prices. How about you stop facilitating international war? How about you actually push people to negotiating tables instead of arming people through proxy wars that you know and have admitted you want to? But okay, secondary issue. Listen to this. Oh, on the bright side, mostly false means partly true. He's only mostly dead. So that should be good enough for Biden supporters to carry on watching the January 6th committee sham while continuing to believe the lie. The lie is so much easier to live with than the truth. And we know that. This is an actual fact check from Newsweek. Okay, kid found the Twitter picture of a shark about to eat me with a pike. It's mostly false. It's mostly false. Kid's lost his mind. Okay.
But you know there's a thing when you laugh to death.
Okay.
There's actually a thing.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds, dude. Give me 2 seconds.
Laugh, you can't leave.
You know what? I think I like being called a patriot also. Brother I like, and patriot. Except they've demonized the word patriot. The government has turned patriot into a 4-letter word. I like patriot. I can accept patriot. Cigarettes are taxed. Also, the shortened lifespan of smokers means a lower cost to social welfare for the entire lifetime. I'm not sure about that. You have to factor in the cost of their treatment that they can't bear themselves. But either way, I mean, look, they're imperfect comparisons, but they're sufficiently similar on a material level. An adult deciding to do something to their body that might harm their own body, that might indirectly create an increased tax burden on society. It was the rationale for imposing the vax tax. Don't expect, other than I think that it was unscientific, don't expect me to change my position on the unconstitutionality of that in a universal healthcare system when they arbitrarily decide to charge people more for what they decide to do to their body. I don't approve of that. There's certain costs that you have to assume. Riding without a helmet in New Hampshire, and where was the other state that I just saw people doing this? I think it was Florida. I don't understand anyone in their right mind who would ride a motorcycle on a highway with no helmet. Don't understand it. That's them. Chances of them hurting me with their soft noggin careening through the air in a car accident, probably less likely than if they have a helmet. I don't know. But those are their decisions. I think some of them are not decisions I would make, to put it mildly. Coach Charles, welcome to the channel. Everyone has to watch Waco, the series, period. I have not done a deep dive into Ruby Ridge, and so I didn't fully appreciate the relevance of Ruby Ridge to Waco. Everyone has to watch Waco, the miniseries. It's eye-opening. And I think I better go. I could do this all. I could stream for 24 hours. One day I'll stream for 24 hours and see what happens. It's
24 hours is day and night.
That's right. It's day and night. Let me see something here. Patriot is a good term. Freedom is, what is it? Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. War is peace.
War is not peace.
See, even a 5-year-old knows that words have meaning. I don't know if you can hear my kid on the side here. He's been watching for a few minutes. Okay.
I'm not watching. I'm playing a game.
Enjoy the game. And we got this. Okay, good. People, let's do this now. It's 2.5 hours in. I'd better go see where my wife is. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been fantastic, interesting. If the other Supreme Court decision comes down tomorrow, probably go live. Definitely cover Sunday night's stream with Barnes is going to be massive. If you missed him on the Duran, check him out on the Duran. It wasn't all Russia, Ukraine. I know that's a sensitive topic for some people. He talked about the SCOTUS decision, talked about a bunch of interesting stuff. Barnes on the Duran, the Alexes are phenomenal. I think Barnes is on with Hunley and Grobert tomorrow. So there's that. If you need the schedule, it's in our locals community. Viva. I don't have our locals community. vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Keep the comments and feedback coming in on the draft Rumble rules that we're working on. We are reading them. We are taking them to consideration and to heart. And I don't even care. I don't even care if you express them in a negative way. I'll focus on the substance. Okay, go. Enjoy the evening. I think there's a martini waiting for me somewhere. See.
He's not.
Oh, there's a kid listening. Good night, people. See you tomorrow. Peace out.